Today, we will explore some of the most serious sexual acts and sins considered grave in the Bible, including rape, homosexuality, bestiality, orgies, and incest, as well as the individuals who committed these sexual sins. First, the sin of rape. Rape is regarded as a clear act of violence and sin. Second, the sin of orgies, also referred to as group sex, involves sexual activities with multiple people. Third, the sin of homosexuality. Homosexual acts are controversial, but within the biblical context, they are seen as contrary to the order of creation, which views sexual relations between men and women as the divine design. Acts outside this order are interpreted as being against God's will. Fourth, the sin of bestiality. Bestiality refers to sexual relations with animals, which the Bible considers an abomination. Fifth, the sin of incest, which refers to sexual relations between close relatives. Leviticus 18:6 states, "You shall not uncover the nakedness of your near kin." Incest destroys family structure, can cause genetic issues, and leads to social disorder. Apart from these sins, there are other sexual sins such as prostitution, adultery, fornication, and lustful thoughts. We will cover these in the next video. 1. Rape. The rape of Dinah by Shechem. This incident is recorded in Genesis 34. Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, visited the city of Shechem in the land of Canaan. There Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, saw Dinah and forcibly took and raped her. However, Shechem fell in love with Dinah and wanted to marry her. Hamor, Shechem's father, proposed marriage to Jacob's family to resolve the issue. Jacob's sons, especially Simeon and Levi, pretended to accept the proposal but demanded that Shechem and the men of his city undergo circumcision. On the third day after the circumcision, Simeon and Levi took their swords and attacked the city, killing all the males and rescuing Dinah. They also plundered the city's wealth, livestock, and took the women and children captive. This event is recorded in the Bible as an example of the severe consequences of not adhering to God's moral laws. The rape of Tamar by Amnon. Amnon, the son of King David, lusted after his half-sister Tamar, who was Absalom's full sister. Amnon's desire for Tamar made him ill with distress. His cousin and friend Jonadab advised Amnon to deceive Tamar by pretending to be sick and requesting her to come and prepare food for him. Amnon followed this plan and, when Tamar came to his room, he grabbed her and tried to force himself on her. Tamar resisted and pleaded with him, but Amnon ignored her pleas and raped her. After the act, Amnon's infatuation turned into hatred, and he cast her out of his house. Tamar sought help and reported the incident, which led her brother Absalom to harbor great anger. Absalom eventually avenged Tamar by killing Amnon several years later. This incident brought significant tragedy and division within David's family and led to internal strife in David's kingdom. 2. Orgies. Absalom's orgy. The incident of Absalom's orgy is recorded in 2 Samuel 16. This occurred when Absalom, David's son, rebelled against his father. Absalom took over Jerusalem and claimed the throne, publicly having relations with his father's concubines in front of the people. In fact, it was Absalom's chief advisor Ahithophel who advised him to have relations with his father David's concubines publicly. This was to symbolically demonstrate Absalom's complete rebellion against David and to solidify his claim to the throne. By publicly having relations with David's concubines, Absalom sought to assert himself as the new king and thoroughly undermine David's authority. According to 2 Samuel 16:22, "So they pitched a tent for Absalom on the roof, and he lay with his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel." This event shocked David's family and kingdom, deepening the conflict between David and Absalom. Absalom's act is understood not merely as a sexual crime but as part of a political rebellion and power struggle. It symbolizes the internal strife and confusion within David's kingdom, eventually leading to the tragic war between David and Absalom. The Israelites and the golden calf. This occurred while Moses was on Mount Sinai receiving God's commandments. The Israelites, feeling anxious because Moses was delayed, asked Aaron to make them a new god to lead them. Aaron collected gold earrings from the people and fashioned a golden calf, which the people worshipped, declaring, "This is your God, O Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." Aaron also proclaimed a festival before the golden calf. Exodus 32:6 states, "So the next day the people rose early and sacrificed burnt offerings and presented fellowship offerings. Afterward, they sat down to eat and drink and got up to indulge in revelry." The term revelry includes orgiastic and licentious behavior. The Israelites engaged in idol worship and unrestrained festivities before the golden calf. When Moses descended from the mountain and saw this, he was furious. God judged the Israelites for their idolatry and licentious behavior, resulting in about 3,000 people being killed that day. 3. Homosexuality. Sodom and Gomorrah residents' homosexuality. The most famous example related to homosexual acts is the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. When two angels arrived in Sodom and stayed at Lot's house, the men of Sodom heard about the two visitors and surrounded Lot's house, demanding, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we can have sex with them." The term "have sex with them" indicates their homosexual desire. Lot offered his daughters instead, but the men of Sodom refused and insisted on bringing out the visitors. This incident ultimately led to God's judgment and the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. The Gibeonites' homosexuality and gang rape. This incident is recorded in Judges 19. A Levite and his concubine were traveling from Bethlehem to the hill country of Ephraim when they stopped in the town of Gibeah in Benjamin's territory. They stayed in an old man's house. That night, wicked men of Gibeah surrounded the house, demanding to bring out the Levite so they could have sex with him. They shouted to the old man, "Bring out the man who came to your house so we can have sex with him." The old man pleaded with them not to harm his guest and offered his virgin daughter instead, but the wicked men refused. Eventually, the Levite's concubine was sent out to them, and they gang raped her all night. She collapsed at the door and died. The Levite took her body, cut it into 12 pieces, and sent them to all the tribes of Israel. This incident shocked the entire nation of Israel, leading them to gather at Mizpah and demand that the Benjamites surrender the wicked men of Gibeah. When the Benjamites refused, a civil war ensued. After 3 battles, the other tribes nearly annihilated the Benjamites, killing all but 600 men who fled to the rock of Rimmon. After the war, the Israelites, feeling remorse for nearly wiping out an entire tribe, decided to help the surviving Benjamites. They provided wives for them from Jabesh Gilead and allowed the Benjamites to abduct women from Shiloh to rebuild their tribe. 4. Bestiality. While the Bible does not record specific incidents of bestiality, it explicitly forbids the practice in Leviticus and Exodus. The Bible considers bestiality an abominable act, stating that those who engage in it must be put to death. This reflects the Bible's emphasis on human dignity and natural order. 5. Incest. Lastly, let's look at individuals involved in incestuous relationships. However, unlike the aforementioned sins, the standards for certain sexual sins, especially incest, can vary by country or era. For example, in South Korea, which has some of the strictest standards, relationships up to third cousins are considered incestuous by law. In contrast, most countries consider only first cousins or immediate relatives as incestuous, and in some primitive tribal societies, even sibling relationships are permitted. Therefore, the cases of incest mentioned below may not have been considered sinful by God due to the specific circumstances or historical context. Lot and his 2 daughters. According to Genesis 19, after the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot and his 2 daughters lived in a remote cave without any contact with the outside world, following the loss of Lot's wife, who became a pillar of salt. Lot's daughters, worried about continuing their family line, decided to have sexual relations with their father. They got Lot drunk, and each daughter took turns sleeping with him, resulting in both daughters becoming pregnant. The elder daughter bore a son named Moab, and the younger bore a son named Ben-Ammi. These sons became the ancestors of the Moabites and Ammonites, respectively, who later had numerous conflicts with Israel. This incident demonstrates despair and human depravity. Abraham and Sarah. According to Genesis 20:12, Abraham revealed that his wife Sarah was actually his half-sister. This would be considered incest by modern standards, but at that time, incestuous marriages were not as strongly prohibited as they are now. Nevertheless, this is an example of an incestuous relationship recorded in the Bible. Moses' parents. There are other examples from ancient times that would be considered incestuous by today's standards. According to Exodus 6, Moses' parents were aunt and nephew. Amram married his father's sister Jochebed, who bore him Aaron and Moses. Judah and Tamar. Judah was the fourth son born to Jacob and Leah. According to Genesis 38, Judah arranged for his son Er to marry Tamar, making Tamar his daughter-in-law. After Er's death, according to custom, Judah instructed his second son Onan to marry Tamar to provide offspring for his deceased brother. Onan refused to fulfill this duty, and God also took his life. Judah then asked Tamar to wait until his youngest son Shelah grew up, but he did not fulfill this promise. Tamar decided to take matters into her own hands to continue the family line. She disguised herself as a prostitute and waited for Judah by the roadside as he was traveling to Timnah. Judah, thinking she was a prostitute, approached her and they had sexual relations. Tamar asked for a pledge from Judah, receiving his seal cord and staff. Tamar became pregnant from this encounter. When Judah learned of her pregnancy, he ordered her to be burned for her perceived promiscuity. However, Tamar produced Judah's pledge items, proving that he was the father. Judah acknowledged his wrongdoing, admitting that Tamar was more righteous than he. Tamar gave birth to twins, Perez and Zerah. Although their relationship might not be classified strictly as incest by modern standards, it involved a form of sexual immorality. Given the historical context, the obligation to preserve the family lineage through levirate marriage justified Tamar's actions, and God did not condemn this act. Today, we have explored various sexual acts and the people involved in them, considered among the greatest acts of depravity in the Bible. These stories remind us of moral standards and emphasize the importance of purity and righteousness before God. Through the wrong choices made by the people in the Bible and the consequences of those choices, we are reminded to stay vigilant. God shows us the right path, and when we follow it, He blesses our lives with peace. Avoiding such sexual immorality and living a pure life as God desires should be our goal. In our next session, we will delve deeper into other forms of sexual immorality and unethical behaviors, including prostitution, adultery, fornication, and lascivious thoughts. We hope today's video has raised awareness and helps you live a righteous life according to the teachings of the Bible. Thank you for watching.